What's up YouTube, and welcome to another draw along with me. Today we've got this really minimalistic fox design. Now in this design there's a link to a set of brushes you're going to need. They can be free if you enter 0, but you can donate a small amount to the creator if you choose to. Once you've downloaded those brushes, the canvas size for today is 2000 by 2000, and then there'll also be another link in the description to the palette so you can follow along with the exact same colours. And finally there's also a link to a stencil that you can use for today's design, which will just give you a guide that you can follow when you're doing your line work. If you're new here, I post Procreate content every single week, but I also post even more tutorials over on my Patreon. I've thrown up the latest 3 on the screen now. If you want to join my Patreon, there's a link in the description down below. You get access to even more tutorials, extra benefits on my Discord server, sneak peeks of upcoming designs, as well as exclusive merch. And if you're interested in any of the equipment I'm using, the Sketchboard Pro, the Paperlike screen cover, and the pen tips, glove and grip, there's links to everything that I use in the description down below. And with all that said, let's get started. So once you've created your canvas and you've inserted the photo of the stencil I've provided, so we're going to go to our layers. I'm actually going to lower mine all the way down to roughly say about 10%, just so we've got it there in the background as a guide. So on our layers, we're going to create a new layer. The first thing we're going to do is go to our brush library. We're going to go to Calligraphy, and we're going to use the monoline brush. Now it doesn't matter what your brush size is, but when we go up to our colours in our palette, we're going to use this colour here on the right hand side, the blue colour. And for this, we're going to simply draw a circle in the middle of the screen. Hold your pen down and pop your finger on the screen to get a perfect circle. And you want to make something that's roughly around about this sort of size just to start with. And then drag and drop your colour into that space. Now, what we're going to want to do is go to our layers and drag that underneath our stencil, because we want to see the stencil. So if we go back to our stencil and just darken that up a little bit by increasing the opacity back up again. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our cursor, and we want to go ahead and using the uniform option under the cursor, and with snapping here turned on in the corner, we want to scale this down till roughly the ears are just slightly poking up and out of the circle, but this curve here matches the tail. So we're going to have to do a little bit of positioning to get that to work, and something like that is pretty good, but we want to make sure it's first of all smack bang in the center. But looking at that size, that's pretty good. So your circle roughly wants to be about 1140 by 1140. And because I'm looking at that now, the ears are poking out the top and the curve pretty much matches the tail, I can position that perfectly in the center there with the orange lines running through the vertical and horizontal axis, and tap on my cursor. And then when I go back to my layers and grab my stencil, I'm going to tap on the cursor. I'm going to position that so that tail does exactly what we were trying to achieve there, just as a guide, and then the nose can stick out the top there as well. And then tap on your cursor when you're done. Now that's just a little bit of positioning just so we can get the effect right. And now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to lower the opacity down of the stencil. You can keep it as dark or as bright as you like, it's totally up to you, but just so you can see it on the screen if at all, if you're going to use it. We're then going to go to our layers and we're going to create a new layer, and we're going to drag it just above the blue circle. We're going to go to our colours, and we're going to double tap at the bottom of our disc here to select black. If you double tap close to the circle there, you'll get perfect black. And then we're going to go to our brush library, and we're going to find the collection that we're using for today, which is this free collection here. And we're going to be using line 1. And once we've selected that brush, we're also then going to tap on it, and we're going to get some of the brush studio options. Now under stabilization, we want to go ahead and change the streamline amount all the way up to max. And we want to increase the stabilization roughly to about 65, 67%, something like that. And tap on done when you're done. Now what that will do is that will help us draw some really lovely smooth lines and keep everything super smooth. Now we want to reduce the brush size down to roughly around about 7 or 8% for this. Now we're going to use this brush to do our lines. So let's get started. I'm going to start here. I'm going to do the tail up to the point. Now we want to press nice and lightly, thicken it up by pressing a bit harder until you hit that point up there. So we're going to come along here until we hit that point. Lovely line like so. Now this next line is the longest line, so we're going to join the tail all the way around to the back of the head there. So you can do it in one movement. I would suggest you do, just so it looks a lot better than conjoining lines. So it's up to you if you want to start here or here, whichever one you feel more comfortable with. And once you've done that one, we're then going to take a look at the ears. Now we're going to do the tip of the ear here, so nice and firm, and just let that run into the body a little bit, like so. And then from this point here, we're going to do the next line. Then we're going to do the conjoining line. And then we're going to do the other ear, which links onto that line that we just drew. And if you get any excess runoff, you can tap on your eraser, you can go to Calligraphy and monoline. Reduce your monoline quite small, and then just sort of tidy up those lines. Maybe get rid of a few pixels around the edge, if it means you can just tidy up that line work, because this line work is the most important part of this. So going back to my brush, I'm then going to do the top of the ear here as well, that goes to the body. Now you can see you've got a bit of a raised point here for the nose, so I'm going to start there, and I'm going to come down and link up to that line. And we'll come back to that in a second where we'll thicken that up. And then we're going to zoom out, and we've got one sort of long line that we can try and get done in one motion. So we're going to start at the nose, come to here, and then go around the chest, right down into the tail that we started with. And you can see here there's one extra line as well, so we're just going to drag a line across there, and that's the front of the fox. And then you should end up with that sort of line work. Now if we zoom in, there's a couple of things we want to try and do. Now looking at the stencil, the only thing we want to try and do is just increase the little bit on the end of the nose there, just to create sort of a rounded button nose. So I'm just going to go around there, thicken that up, and then bring that back into the body. Maybe you go a little bit wider again, and just create a little bit of a button on the end of the nose there. Now zooming out, we now have our line work. We can get started on adding some color on the inside. So for this, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our layers. We're going to see our layer here that we just worked on. While we're on it, we're going to tap on it and use the option of reference. Now what that means is every layer otherwise uses this line work as a guide. So if you want to drag and drop some color in, it uses this as a guide. So we're going to create a new layer, and we're going to drag it underneath the fox. We're going to go to our colors, and we've got this wonderful collection of warm tones over here. We're going to use this one here first of all as the main body of the fox, so this one on its own. And then we're going to simply go to the color at the top, drag it into this space here and let go, as well as drag it into this space here for the front legs as well. Next, what we're going to do is go ahead and add some brighter gradient tones in here. So we're going to go to that layer that we were just working on. We're going to tap on it, and we're going to go ahead and alpha lock it. While we're in our layers, let's go back up to our reference layer, tap on it, and turn off the reference. Then go back to your orange layer, and now we're going to go to our colors. And we're going to end up adding some nice warm tones here on the chest, and some more red tones around the back. So let's do exactly that. Let's grab this color here. So the second color down on the first column. We're going to go to our brush library. We're going to go ahead and use the airbrush inside of the same collection. And with my brush size is set to, it's quite big, it's about 50%. Now before we continue, we're going to go to our selection tool. We're going to use the freehand option, and what we're going to do is we're going to go along this line here and then straight down. And what we're going to do is we're isolating the tail from the body, so that in a second we can colour in the body without affecting the tail, and then flip the selection so then we can only work on the tail and not affect the work that we do in the body. That'll keep things super nice and tidy. So we're going to simply draw down the line that we were on there. We're creating a selection as we go, and then we're just going to run that line off, following the momentum, and then go all the way around the outside and tap on the dot at the top. Now what that will do is that will select the tail. Now we can work on the tail first, so we're going to go back to our brush, and we're going to add those colours in. Now we want to add some warmer tones up here on this edge of the tail, and maybe some darker tones towards the bottom. So with this colour selected of this colour here, we're going to just add in a little tone of that colour here, mainly focusing on the tail, not so much down here. Now you won't see too much of a change because that colour is pretty close. We're then going to switch it out to the next lighter tone, so this orange in the second column, the second colour down. And then we're just going to start adding in some lovely warmer yellowy tones. Mainly focusing up towards the tip of the tail, and then bringing that down like so. You can see the difference now. If we then switch our colour out to the next tone, which is this yellow, we're then going to just brighten that edge up even more. And you can see I'm avoiding running all the way down to the tip of the tail. We don't really want to interfere with that selection too much. And then one more time we're going to go to our colours. We're going to grab the yellowy tone here, the fourth colour along, and then we're just going to brighten that edge up even more, like so. The next thing we're going to do while we're working on this area, let's go to our colours and let's work on the darker tones. So we've got these two at the top. So the first colour in the palette, top left hand side, and then we're going to go from left to right very lightly, just blending in that darker tone right underneath the bottom there. We're then going to go to our colours and grab the darkest red, the second colour on the top row, and then just darken up the very bottom edge of our tail, like so. And now we've still got our selection selected, so what we're going to do is we're going to use that. We're going to hold down on our selection and we'll get the little menu come up, and we're going to use the option of invert, which will now select everything but the tail, and now we can do the exact same work on the chest here. So let's work on our lighter colours again. So we're going to go to our colours. We're just going to jump straight to the second colour on the second column, so this one here, and then going back to our brush, we're going to brighten up that chest, so bring that colour all the way around. You can see the sort of motion and where I'm painting, and I'm filling in the right hand edge quite strong, and then we're just going to bring a little bit up into the face, but pushing that colour as wide as I can. Again, avoiding this meeting join here, we're just pushing that colour out from here. We're then going to go to our colours. Let's grab the next colour, the yellow here, the third colour on the second row. We're then going to brighten that chest up even more. Maybe a tiny bit under the mouth, but otherwise we're fine with just that. Let's then grab the lightest tone again, the yellow, the fourth colour along, and then do exactly the same. Let's just add in a little bit more here, keeping it more towards the right hand edge, like so. Let's then go ahead and switch it out to the first shadow colour, the top one in the top left hand corner of the palette. I'm going to darken up this left hand edge. Again, avoiding this down here, we're kind of just bringing it up from there. We're going to really darken up the ears so you can fill that out as much as you like, darkening up around the back there. We're then going to switch it out to the next shadow colour, the second one along on the top row, and then darken up that edge even more, darkening up the ears, because we're going to fill them in a second, but just bring in those darker tones around the outside there. We're then going to go to our colours, and we're going to double tap at the bottom of our disc here to select black, and then what we're going to do is maybe reduce your brush size down a little bit to about, say, 30% potentially. In a circular motion for both ears, I'm just making my way from the outside inside and just darkening up those ears as I make my way in, like so, until pretty much the very tip of the ears is nice and black. And then you can keep bringing that in. I would press very lightly as you get closer to the face and just blend that colour in like so. And then maybe a tiny bit of darkness just on the tip of the nose here. That's all I would add there. Now that's looking awesome. We are going to add some extra shadows in here in a second. But if we tap on our selection tool now, we should have our beautiful palette of colours within the fox's body. Now we need to go ahead and add the white fur. So we're going to go to our colours. We're going to double tap in the top left hand corner to select white. We're going to go to our brush library, and we're going to switch back to the line brush that we were working on, and we're going to add in the white tones. Now for the tones, we're going to work on the tail, and we're going to work down the chest. So we're going to work on the tail first, and on the same layer we're working on, we're going to just simply draw a curve across the tail and then add some furry sort of spikes to it. So roughly here, I'm going to create a curve like so. You can hold your pen down if you want to get a perfect arc, and then you can adjust it if you want to, and then go all the way around like so, and then we're just going to have to fill that in. So you could go back and increase your brush size and make it as large as you can. That'll just fill that nice and quickly, like so. Lovely job. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce my brush size down to maybe about 2%, and from the middle point here, I'm going to press quite firm and then create a nice little triangle there. I'm going to have to come back and fill that in a second, and then we're going to go ahead and use the curvature of the tail here to create another little flick, and use the curvature of the tail here as well to create another little flick, until we end up with 3 little triangles like so. Now we reduce the brush size so we can press nice and firm and get solid lines. You can increase it back up to about 7 or 8% now, and just fill in the little gaps inside there like so. So little colouring in there. And then try not to adjust our lines in any way. When we zoom out, we've got a lovely little furry flick on the tail there. While we're here, let's also add a highlight on the tail. Now I might start down here, start super lightly, and just curve that up into the tail. You'll end up with a little highlight like that. Then we're going to go ahead and work on the fox itself. So we're going to start up at the face. We're going to create a nice little swooping line and create a nice big white chest. So now we want to go ahead and create a little bit of a white bit of fur on the underside of the mouth, around the chest, and then down into this point here. You don't want this point to run out into the tail. So starting up here. And then we're going to go up this line here just to isolate this shape. Come all the way up into here, like so. And then we want to fill all this in. So just increase your brush size up a little bit more. And just fill that layer in. Making sure you don't run out of your line work there. And then just fill in any little gaps. Now just the same as we did with the little bit on the tail, we're going to create some flicks here in the chest. So we're going to follow the motion of the line down and then create a little flick here, a little one here, and another one here. So I'm going to reduce my brush size down to about 4 or 5%. I'm going to come down this point here, create a lovely little flick, and then come back in on myself. I'm going to do the same again, create another little flick, come back in on myself, and then one more time, a little smaller one on the end there, and then we end up with our little furry chest. Now we also want to create a little highlight on the top of the ear here, so I'm going to increase my brush size up to about 7% again, and then just create a lovely little flick on the top of the ears, like so, as a little highlight. We do now want to also create an eye in here, so we're going to go back to our brush library. We're going to scroll down until we get back to Calligraphy and the monoline brush. We're going to go to our colors and double tap at the bottom of our disk to select black. We're going to go back to our layers. And if you feel confident enough, you can draw it straight onto this layer, or you can create a new layer. And then with that new layer, set your brush size to something, say about 10%. And you can just draw in a little circle, hold your pen down, pop your finger on the screen to get a nice perfect circle, or go for an ellipse, either. I'm going to go for a bit of an ellipse there and drag and drop the color in. And then because it's on a separate layer, you can grab your cursor and you can position that just where you need it to sit. Now roughly where I placed it was pretty good and bang on. So roughly there looks good to me. And then on this layer that I'm on, I'm going to go to my colors and double tap in the top left hand corner to select white. And then with my monoline brush set to about 7%, 6%, I'm just going to drop a little highlight there on the eye. And then I'm going to go to my layers. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to drag it above my line work because I want to put a lovely little highlight on the end of the nose. So just a little dot or an ellipse even, just on the tip of the nose. Zooming out, we've got our nice little cute fox. Let's add some shadows onto it as well. So we're going to go to our layers. We're going to go back down to the original fox layer with the colors. We're going to create a new layer and we're going to tap on it and we're going to clipping mask it to that shape. Now because this layer is a clipping mask, anything we draw now is automatically clipped to the shape of the fox. And we're going to tap on the N, which stands for normal, which is its layer option. And we're going to lower the opacity down roughly to about 25%. We're then going to go back to our brush library. We're going to go back to the collection that we've been using, the Free Basic collection, and line 1. We're going to go to our colors and we're going to double tap to select black. Now we're going to create some shadows for our little fox. So what we're going to do is we're going to start behind the ear, go all the way around the back and then under this tail here. And that will be our background shadow for our fox. So I'm going to start up here, go all the way around the back of the fox and then just flick that shadow up like so. And then we should be able to go around this bottom edge now. Go all the way around again, link up to your start point and then zooming back out again. If you linked it all up nicely, you should be able to drag and drop black into your shape and we end up with a really lovely shadow on the back there. And then on the ears, we're also going to add a little shadow here. So I'm going to start here and just flick upwards. So all I'm going to do is just flick upwards, fill in the whole of the back of the ear there. And then if I zoom out, our fox itself is actually done. Let's just add in some extra shadows inside the circle itself. So we're going to go to our layers. We're going to go ahead and we're going to turn off the stencil at the top. We're going to turn off the blue circle and the background color until we're left with just the fox. We're going to swipe with 3 fingers and we're going to use the option of copy all. We're going to swipe with 3 fingers and we're going to use the option of paste. That will paste in the entire fox, but on one layer here, as you can see. And we're going to drag that down just in front of our blue circle. Now if we turn the blue circle back on and the background color, this new layer we've got here, we're going to tap on it, alpha lock it, we're going to tap on it, and because we've got black still selected, we're going to use the option of fill. We're going to tap on this layer, we're going to lower its opacity down to 25%. We're then going to tap on that layer and we're going to clipping mask it to the blue circle. Now when we grab our cursor and we move it down to the left hand side, we will end up with a little drop shadow here just off of our fox, just to add a little bit more depth to the design. And then tap on your cursor when you're done. And if I go full screen with 4 fingers, we end up with today's finished tutorial. So I hope you enjoyed this really simple fox design. If you're new here, I post Procreate content every single week, so hit that subscribe button down below. And shout out to all my patrons. There's a link in the description down below where if you want to get even more Joel.create tutorials every single month, as well as merch, extra benefits on my Discord server, and sneak peeks of upcoming designs, there's a link down there that you can follow. And if you're interested in any of the equipment I'm using, the Sketchboard Pro, the Paperlike screen cover, and the pen-tipped glove and grip, there's links to all my equipment in the description down below. And with all that said, I'll see you in the next one.